You're gonna get cold, Steve.
Just pollen, probably.
This is another view of the back of the Jamestown Visitor Center. All 50 flags are on display in the back. Brand new building.
Why don't you stand pointing at the sign? Alright, go stand there. Powhatan Indian Village. Now, at the time that the settlers arrived here, it was 1607, and there were about 32 different Algonquin-speaking tribes in the area. And they all belonged, and they were all ruled by this one man whose title was the Powhatan. And that's why we call them Powhatan Indians. Now, his name was Wahoon Sunnicock. And do any of you know his famous daughter? Any of you know her name? Right, Pocahontas, right. Her name means playful one, and she was his favorite daughter. Now, these villages could range in size from housing 50 people to housing 500 people. This is a very small village, so there would be about 50 people in this village. And these structures here, these are called yehakens. And they're made by tying bent saplings together with cordage, and you cover them with weed meat.
Very good. 2 for 3. What you're doing?
What does this turn into?
What are you doing? What's in there?
Corn.
Right.
What does it turn into after?
Well, why do you think you might want to grind up the corn?
Make it do other things.
Well, you're going to make cornmeal, sort of like flour, and use that for cooking.
So they would use this instead of flour?
Mm-hmm. Sure, I'll move out if you want to move in. No? Okay. To come here twice a day. Once at 10 o'clock in the morning and once at 4 o'clock. And this is where they would receive their work orders. And during the winter and starving time, they had to come here twice a day just to sort of take attendance to see exactly who was alive and who wasn't, because they were dying so quickly. Now this is a Tudor-constructed building, and the walls are made of wattle and daub. If you look at the back there, you'll see sort of a hole in the wall where you can see twigs sticking through. Now that's the wattle. The twigs are the wattle of the building, and that's like the bone of the wall. And the daub is the clay-like mixture that you press into the wall to make it insulate.
This is the inside of the fort, the reproduction of the fort. We learned that the real settlement is a quarter of a mile north of here on what is now an island, then a peninsula. This is an example of a thatched roof that was done by English craftsmen, and far superior to some of the other examples, such as that one over there done by Americans in creating the reproduction. This is a gentleman's home where all the common provisions were kept. And this is his house, which is an example of a classier construction built by the laboring class. This is an example of the laborer's house, much simpler, more poorly appointed, no upstairs, no fireplace, etc. This is Steve doing bowling on the original bowling alley, the first bowling alley. Good. Dave, see if you can pick the spare up. Get rid of those other pins and then you'll be able to...
It's hard. It's harder than it looks.
Good, not bad.
Yeah, this is probably as close to this as we can find. Between here and the island next door, everything else is pretty much, whereas this is ground level gut work.
It's really amazing.
44 men on board these ships. There were 40 sailors and 104 settlers. Now, if you look on the side of the Susan, you'll see two big black lines. And between those black lines and below those black lines, those are the cargo areas. And the middle one there, that's called the tween deck. That's easy to remember because it's between the two black lines. And that's where the men stayed. There were 71 men on board the Susan, and 54 of them were settlers. And they stayed in that little area right there. And it's not too bad. You know, there's a lot of space down there, but you really can't see them. But the only problem is it was only 4.5 feet tall, so they couldn't stand up while they were down there. They had to crouch over or lay down or sit down the whole time. These men were very bored. They were on board the ships for about 90 days.
For the ship, not very often. They really only say about 3 things in their records about it. One is that they would let them above deck when the captain or the master thought they wouldn't interfere with the crew members. They say that in the English Channel, they let Reverend Robert Hunt above deck one time so that he could wash down, help them through that.
Wow. What animals did they bring?
They brought it.
This looks like the officers' quarters in the bow of the ship.
Yeah, I'll get you by the little ones, because that way I can get more food. Here, just stand by this barrel, guys. No.
Killing me, Dave.
First American game of tennis.
Wait a minute.
1780, 4 years since the signing of the Declaration of Independence. General Washington has forged an army from farmers and shopkeepers to face perhaps the best soldiers in the world. The fighting has been inconclusive, a stalemate. The British occupy New York, while Washington's army sits watching them. Sir Henry Clinton, the King's commander in America, decides to take advantage of strong loyalist groups in the South to strike a decisive blow. Confident of British naval superiority, Clinton takes half of his army from New York and sails south. After a 2-month siege, he captures Charleston and 5,000 American soldiers.
They're falling away under our flanks. Excellent, Major Ross.
Clinton returns to New York, leaving his trusted lieutenant, Lord Charles Cornwallis, with 5,000 regulars.
We'll follow you out.
Cornwallis is a true aristocrat. Eton, Cambridge, a competent, experienced officer. At Camden, South Carolina, he practically annihilates an American army sent to relieve Charleston. Washington sends his most able officers to the Southern campaign. General Nathaniel Greene is sent to face Cornwallis in the Carolinas. During a series of small, well-fought battles at Kings Mountain, Cowpens, and finally Guilford Courthouse, the Americans so reduced Cornwallis's army that he must seek relief and rest. After refitting at Wilmington, North Carolina, Cornwallis moves on to Virginia, joining British forces already operating there. He is shadowed by Washington's most trusted officer, the 20-year-old French aristocrat, Marquis de Lafayette. A once thriving tobacco port, it is now a sleepy little village. Washington, still facing Clinton in New York, is desperate. He must take some kind of action. The moment is at hand. The British army is split in two. Perhaps more important, the French have embraced the American cause. French King Louis XVI has sent 5,000 French soldiers under the command of the Count de Rochambeau, one of his most able generals. While Washington hopes to trap Clinton in New York, the French commander favors a plan to trap Cornwallis in the south. Both plans depend on the cooperation of the French fleet. When word comes that the French fleet will sail for the Chesapeake, Washington seizes the opportunity. In the late August heat, they trudge south through New Jersey. Up each morning at 3 o'clock, marching by 4, they pass through Philadelphia and on. When it dawns on Clinton what is happening, it is too late for him to take action.
Reinforcements. The Royal Navy, 23 ships of sail and 5,000 men. Sentry! Have Colonel Dundas report to me at once. Send a courier to Colonel Tarleton.
Waiting in Yorktown, Cornwallis knows that the Americans and French are coming. Yet he feels confident that the British Navy can support him.
Mr. Washington will find no victory in Yorktown.
A British fleet of 19 ships of the line has left New York, making all speed for the Chesapeake Bay. The French fleet under Admiral de Grasse is waiting for them at the mouth of the Chesapeake. When the British fleet arrives, 24 French ships slip their anchor cables and come out to meet them. Finally, the British commander decides he's getting the worst of it and heads back to New York. The trap is closing. Washington and Rochambeau arrive in Williamsburg ahead of their marching armies. Lafayette is waiting with intelligence about the British positions. Conferring, consulting, working late into the night, Washington issues the order of battle. The combined French and American forces leave Williamsburg early on the morning of September 28th, heading toward Yorktown. Has built a series of earthen defenses around Yorktown. As the American and French forces draw closer, Cornwallis recognizes the size and strength of the foe he now faces. Cornwallis withdraws his men from the outer defenses, pulling his troops in tighter around Yorktown. Cornwallis sets his back to the York River, a possible escape route. He keeps a small force under Tarleton on the opposite shore in Gloucester. The Americans and French move in and occupy the vacated outer defenses. The French commander, Rochambeau, a veteran of 14 sieges, guides Washington's approach. Trenches are dug closer to the British position. The troops dig day and night. By October 9th, The Allied lines are near completion. The French and American allies have brought large siege guns for destroying fortifications. As they are moved into position, every man waits. The French batteries begin the fight. Soon the American batteries open fire. The siege begins. Washington moves his army forward. A second line of trenches is started, only 400 yards from the British position. Two small earthen forts, called redoubts 9 and 10, stand in the way of completing this second line. They are pounded by the siege guns. At night, 400 cracked French soldiers are ready to storm one redoubt, and 400 American veterans prepare to take the other. The Americans advance with fixed bayonets and unloaded muskets. Only 400 yards apart, the pounding continues. The cannon fire almost point blank into the British position. Cornwallis has one last hope: escape across the river. The first wave of 1,000 men makes it across. Then, a sudden storm hits and scatters their small boats.
I want no more casualties. As you request. Yes, sir.
Only a few boats have reached the opposite shore, sir. And over 20 have been lost. All have received some damage, sir.
There is no escape. It is over. Long and tedious haggling over the articles of surrender.
Gentlemen, be seated, please.
The next day, Cornwallis meets with his staff to discuss the terms.
I will not surrender without the full honors of war.
The British would not be accorded full military honor.
We have no hope to negotiate better terms.
This is in return for similar British treatment of the American troops at Charleston.
General O'Hara, you will surrender the sword.
October 19, 1781, the defeated British march out. Cornwallis sends word that he is ill and will be represented by Brigadier General Charles O'Hara. He surrenders over 8,000 British soldiers. His Majesty the King treated it as only temporary bad news. After all, the British still held New York. But England was tiring of the struggle. 2 years after the Battle of Yorktown, the Treaty of Paris ends the American Revolution.
To surrender to the field, where they put down their muskets in a great heap. I wish Jason could have seen it. Now I'll have to tell his mother that he's gone.
Let remain this focal point of activity at Yorktown. Please view them as the place where many of the major decisions leading to the officers. They have just planned the next attack on British redoubts 9 and 10. The dining and sleeping tents make a compact headquarters which serve Washington's purposes well. By day, the large tent, which is about 29 feet long, serves as an office. In the evening, it is converted into a dining tent for watching major military activities. In the adjoining room behind are displayed the dining tent line and the sleeping tent.
On a nearly parallel course, cannon roared. The fleet drifted south. By sunset, sails, masts, and rigging cluttered the decks of disabled ships. The French fleet returned to the Chesapeake and resumed its blockade. Considering the damaged condition of his fleet, British Admiral Graves ordered its return to New York for repairs. While this sea battle produced no clear victory, it ensured Britain's defeat at Yorktown. Before the arrival of the French-American army, Lord Cornwallis and his troops had dug in a defensive position in the towns of York and Gloucester and built these advanced positions called redoubts. With the arrival of Washington's forces, Lord Cornwallis ordered his troops to retreat from the outer defenses. Why? He had received this message from his commander. In a few days, the fleet and 5,000 reinforcements will arrive to relieve you.
Stop!
This you can't see really from the sign from this distance, but it's British Redoubt number 9.
British Redoubt, number 9.
Louder.
French soldiers, 400 strong, overwhelmed the 120 British defenders of this position on the night of October 14, 1781. This and the fall of Redoubt 10 spelled the end of the Cornwallis hold on Yorktown.
This is the inside of British Redoubt number 9. Everything's authentic except for those two guys.
No, these are real cannons. No. If we got under attack, they'd probably be all in the same place. Man-made forts.
Come on down through there. This is the side of Redoubt number 9. The shorter cannons are howitzers.
This is the same thing my brother filmed, except it's Redoubt area number 10. And the Americans captured this. The British carried the one that my brother filmed.
The French, you mean?
The French.
At the time were destroyed. Morehouse was within musket shot of the first British defenses that were established at Wormley Creek. If you came over on the Park Tour Road, that's the high water dam that you may have driven by. You'll drive over it if you follow the Park Tour Road afterwards. In 1862, the house will be in the middle of another war. Our deer back. Did you see a deer? We had some deer grazing out here earlier. There's a baby one, and every time it would move, somebody would come.
This is the room in which the surrender was negotiated, and these were furnished the way it would have been then.
Was that, you know, that he wears in his collar, what was that?
It's just
Another ornament?
pure decoration.
Didn't have any condition.
As I understand it, I believe for him that would have been a family token.
Surrender negotiations began about 2 p.m. and lasted well into the night. Ooh.
Full of people staring at you and giggling and everything else. It's difficult.
The guide mentioned that this tree, which I think is a sycamore tree, was here at the time of the signing of the surrender, which makes it obviously more than 200 years, or close to 200 years old. The significance of these three flags in this location is that this is the place where the British surrendered with the Germans to the colonists and the French forces on October 19th, 1981, marking the end of the American Revolution. This is appropriately called Surrender Field. And this is the end of our automobile tour.
You may want to modify your last statement.
Okay, I've been corrected, I stand corrected. This was not the end of the war. The war did not end until 2 years later. However, the British forces were so weakened, so profoundly weakened by the loss of 1/3 of their army at the Battle of Yorktown, that they never recovered and ultimately surrendered to the Americans or to the colonists some 2 years later.